Please leave a comment where you are watching from. So yeah, I don't even know where to begin with this story, but it was the shit, pun intended. If I don't vent here, I might scream into the void or something. I just need to get this out, because I have never in my life been on a date so catastrophically bad. Like, I've had bad dates before. Who hasn't? There was the guy who talked about his ex the entire time, the dude who showed up 45 minutes late and didn't apologize, and even the one who tried to split a $12 check 80/20ths because he only had a water. But this was next level. This was the Mount Everest of bad dates. And the thing is, it all started so promisingly. Ugh, okay, let me back up. So I matched with this guy, let's call him Matt, on one of the apps. You know the one where everyone says they're looking for something serious, but 90% of them are just there for free validation or situationships. Anyway, Matt seemed different. He had this really cute, goofy smile, said he loved dogs, important, and his profile had just the right amount of self-deprecating humor without coming across as insecure. He even spelled everything correctly in his messages, which is like finding a unicorn these days. We chatted for about a week, and our conversations were genuinely great, funny, flirty, and way less awkward than most first date preambles. The man even used punctuation. I was impressed. We decided to meet up for dinner and drinks at this trendy little gastropub downtown. You know the type, exposed brick, Edison bulbs, charcuterie boards that cost more than my phone bill. I was excited, like actually excited. That almost never happens anymore. I even shaved my legs. My legs. In late October. If that doesn't scream, high hopes, I don't know what does. Fast forward to date night. He shows up on time, a miracle. Looks even better in person, another miracle. And is super polite to the waitstaff, triple miracle. I'm already mentally planning how I'm going to describe this to my friends in the group chat the next day. You guys, I think I just had the best first date of my life. Dinner goes great. Like amazing. We're laughing, we're vibing, we're doing that thing where you start leaning closer and closer across the table without even realizing it. He orders this massive burger with a side of truffle fries, and I tease him about how there's no way he's going to finish it. He grins and says, "Watch me." It's cute. Everything about him is cute. I'm already picturing us as one of those obnoxious couples who post matching Halloween costumes on Instagram. Too soon? Don't care. The man was fine. After dinner, we decide to grab a drink at a bar nearby. One drink turns into two, and by this point, I'm feeling bold. Like, let's skip the games and go make out on my couch bold. So I suggest we head back to my place. He hesitates for like half a second, just long enough for me to think, oh God, did I misread this? But then he smiles and says, yeah, okay, let's go. Cue internal victory dance. Here's where things start to go south. Literally. We get to my apartment, and I'm feeling great. I've got candles lit, music playing, not too obvious, just a chill indie playlist that says, I'm cool and mysterious, but also totally approachable. We're sitting on the couch, and I'm thinking, this is it. This is the start of my rom-com moment. That's when he says it. Hey, where's your bathroom? No big deal, right? People gotta pee. I point him toward the hallway, and he heads off. I'm sitting there, sipping my wine, waiting for him to come back so we can continue our flirty banter and maybe, progress things. But he doesn't come back. 5 minutes pass. Then 10. At this point, I'm starting to think, okay, maybe he's just nervous. First date jitters. Happens to the best of us. I even convince myself it's kind of cute. Like, he's probably giving himself a little pep talk in the mirror. Adorable. But then it's 15 minutes. And then 20 minutes. Now I'm concerned. Not because I think anything's wrong with him, but because I'm starting to feel like I might be the problem. Did I say something weird? Was my apartment too messy? It wasn't. I cleaned for this man like I was hosting the Queen of England. I'm spiraling. Finally, I hear the toilet flush. And then flush again. Y'all, when I tell you the sound of that third flush sent a chill down my spine. I knew. I just knew. Something had gone horribly, horribly wrong. He comes out of the bathroom a minute later, and he looks like he's seen a ghost. Like full-on pale, sweaty, deer in headlights vibes. I'm about to ask if he's okay when he blurts out, I think I clogged your toilet. Now, I want to be clear about something. I am not a monster. I get it. Stuff happens. Toilets clog. It's not the end of the world. But the way he said it, the sheer terror in his voice. I knew this wasn't just a little clog. This was a situation. I try to play it cool. Oh, no big deal. I say, smiling like a liar. I've got a plunger under the sink. He doesn't move. He just stands there, looking at me with this haunted expression, like I just told him he has to perform open-heart surgery with a spork. So I sigh, get up, and go grab the plunger myself. Y'all, when I opened that bathroom door, I can't even describe the scene. It was like a crime scene. A poo crime scene. The toilet was overflowing. There was water on the floor. The smell, oh my god, the smell. I gagged. I literally gagged. I turned around, plunger in hand, and he's just standing there in the hallway, looking like a kid who got caught shoplifting. I'm so sorry, he mumbles. I don't know what happened. I'll tell you what happened, Matt. You ate a burger the size of your head, chased it with 2 IPAs, and then decided to ruin my plumbing. That's what happened. Long story short, too late, I know. I spent the next 20 minutes plunging my own toilet while he stood there awkwardly, offering useless suggestions like, maybe try flushing again? Do you not see the water on the floor, Matt? By the time I finally got everything under control, I was sweaty, exhausted, and in absolutely no mood to make out with anyone. He apologized a million times, but the damage was done. I told him I wasn't feeling well, and basically shoved him out the door. The best part? He texted me the next day to say he had a great time and wanted to see me again. Like, sir, you destroyed my bathroom. You made me wade through toilet water on a first date. How do you come back from that? Anyway, that's the story of how my dream date turned into my worst nightmare. I'm still single, and my bathroom still smells weird. Thanks for listening, random internet strangers. Alright, Reddit, gather round, because I have another dating disaster story for you. At this point, I'm convinced the universe is playing some kind of sick joke on me. Like, oh, you think you're ready for love? Haha, let me just throw a few more curveballs your way. So, as usual, this all began with a guy who seemed perfect. His name was Ryan. We'd been chatting for about a week, and he suggested dinner at this super fancy restaurant downtown. You know, the kind of place with white tablecloths, waiters in suits, and menus that don't have prices on them, so you know everything costs your soul, and maybe your firstborn child. Normally, I'd be like, let's just hit a taco truck, keep it chill. But he insisted. And I thought, why not? I deserve a bougie night out. Spoiler, I did not deserve what was coming. Fast forward to date night. I spent an obscene amount of time getting ready. Hair, makeup, the whole shebang. I even wore heels, which anyone who knows me will tell you is basically a sign of the apocalypse. Ryan shows up looking amazing, like he could have stepped straight out of a GQ ad. He complimented my dress, opened the car door for me, and even made a little joke about how he hoped his tie wasn't too finance bro for my taste. Cute, right? We get to the restaurant, and it's everything you'd expect. Dim lighting, soft music, people sipping wine like they're auditioning for a rich people doing rich things commercial. I'm trying not to feel out of place because, let's be real, I'm more of a bottomless mimosas at brunch girl than a $1.60 entree girl. But Ryan is being so sweet and charming, and I'm starting to think, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe I've finally found a guy who doesn't suck. And then, we're halfway through our meal. He ordered some kind of steak that was so rare I'm pretty sure it mooed when the waiter set it down. And I went for the pasta because carbs are my love language when it happens. Ryan takes a bite of his steak, and suddenly he gets this look on his face like he just realized he forgot to turn off the oven at home. His eyes go wide, he clutches his throat, and he starts making these weird choking noises. At first, I thought he was joking. Like, haha, good one, Ryan. You're pretending to choke for attention, classic first date humor. But then he starts full-on panicking, and I realize, oh my god, he's not kidding. He's actually choking. Now, I'd like to think I'm a calm, collected person in a crisis. I'm not. I'm absolutely not. My brain immediately went into full-blown chaos mode. People at nearby tables were starting to notice, and I could see the judgment in their eyes. Like, oh, look at her date making a scene. How embarrassing. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, what do I do? Do I yell for help? Do I just hit him on the back? Is that even a thing? Finally, I remember something about the Heimlich maneuver from a first aid class I took in high school. Shout out to Mrs. Peterson, wherever you are. So I jump out of my chair, run over to Ryan, and get this, YLL, I got this, in the middle of the restaurant. Because apparently in my panic, I thought I was auditioning for an action movie. I wrap my arms around him and start doing the Heimlich, which, let me tell you, is not as graceful as it looks in movies. First of all, Ryan is like 6 feet 3 inches and built like a linebacker. while I'm 5 feet 4 inches on a good day. So I'm basically hopping up and down behind him, trying to get enough leverage to squeeze his torso. Second, I don't think I was doing it right because nothing was happening. Instead, he was just making these awful wheezing noises while I grunted like I was trying to wrestle a bear. At one point, I lost my footing and almost tipped both of us over into the table next to us. This poor older couple was just trying to enjoy their lobster bisque, and suddenly, they have front row seats to what I can only describe as a physical comedy routine gone horribly wrong. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but was probably like 30 seconds, Ryan coughs up this massive chunk of steak. It lands on the floor with an audible splat, and everyone in the restaurant collectively gasps. I'm standing there, red-faced and sweaty, while Ryan leans on the table, gasping for air like he just ran a marathon. The waiter comes over with a glass of water, and someone at another table actually starts clapping. Clapping, like I just performed a magic trick or something. Once Ryan catches his breath, he looks up at me with tears in his eyes from the choking, not because he was touched by my heroics, and says, "Wow, that was really embarrassing." You don't say, Ryan. You don't say. The rest of the meal was awkward, to say the least. He kept apologizing, and I kept insisting it was fine, but let's be real. There's no coming back from something like that. Every time I looked at him, all I could think about was the image of that steak chunk flying out of his mouth like a meat missile. After dinner, he offered to walk me to my car, but I made up some excuse about needing to get up early the next day. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Kiss him goodnight, and pretend I didn't just have my arms wrapped around his abdomen while he hacked up half a cow? No thanks. He texted me later that night to thank me for saving his life, his words, not mine, and asked if I wanted to go out again. I haven't responded yet. I mean, do I really want to date a guy who can't even chew his food properly? What if next time it's like sushi or bread or something? Am I supposed to just carry a Heimlich manual in my purse from now on? Anyway, that's the story of how I became a reluctant hero and ruined any chance of feeling sexy on a first date. Thanks for letting me vent. I'm gonna go eat some ice cream and rethink all my life choices now. When I came across his profile, I wasn't immediately sold, but there was something about his messages, charming, self-deprecating humor, quick replies, that piqued my curiosity. He suggested we meet, and before I could talk myself out of it, I agreed. He wanted to see my favorite hiking trail. It seemed harmless enough. A busy trail, popular even in the rain, more of a scenic walking path than a trek into the wilderness. Looking back, I should have known better. The day of the date, a light rain had started to fall, leaving the air sticky and thick. I pulled into the trailhead parking lot and spotted his car. He was waiting inside, and I joined him to wait out the drizzle. It felt awkward immediately. There's something about sitting in a car with a stranger that makes the silence heavier, the small talk sharper-edged. He seemed normal enough at first, fiddling with his keys and talking about the weather. Then, out of nowhere, he pulled a pill bottle from his pocket, popped it open, and casually took something. "Klonopin," he said. "No big deal. People take medication all the time." But then he turned to me and said, "Want one?" I laughed nervously. "No, I'm good." He asked again a few minutes later, his tone playful but insistent. "Are you sure? Just one. It'll chill you out." I said no, I replied firmly. A faint alarm bell rang in my head. Offering once was weird, but 3 times? That was something else. I brushed it off, though. Maybe he was just awkward. Maybe I was overreacting. When the rain lightened, we started the hike. The forest smelled damp and earthy, the trail lined with towering trees whose leaves dripped from the earlier rain. We walked side by side, talking, or rather, he talked, and I listened. He told me about his life, about his wealthy parents who owned a second home in my town. They let him live there rent-free, and recently, he'd turned it into what he called an artist collective. "We're just a bunch of creatives living together," he explained, grinning. "Sharing ideas, making art." When I asked what kind of art they made, his grin faltered. "Oh, you know," he said vaguely. "We're still figuring it out. Mostly we just hang out, drink, and smoke. Build the vibe." I didn't have the heart to point out that didn't sound much like an artist collective. Instead, I told him about nursing school, about how hard I'd worked to get in, and how much I wanted to make a difference. His response caught me off guard. "That sounds like it'd be really hard on me if we were together," he said, his tone almost accusing. "I need someone who can be fully present, you know?" My stomach sank. Clingy wasn't even the word for it. Possessive? Controlling? I wasn't sure, but whatever it was, it sent a shiver up my spine. By the time the hike was over, I was already counting down the minutes until the date would end. But it wasn't over yet. He wanted to stop by Target, and I felt too awkward to say no. Inside the store, he wandered the aisles aimlessly, picking up a laundry basket and several kinds of socks. More socks than any one person could reasonably need. His sense of humor, which had seemed endearing in text, took on a strange, almost childish edge. He made bizarre noises at other shoppers, drawing confused glances and making me cringe, so hard I wanted to disappear into the floor. When it was finally time to leave, I drove him back to his car at the trailhead. Relief washed over me as I said goodbye, but it was short-lived. When I got home, I realized he'd left his socks in my back seat. Great. Now I had to see him again to give them back. That's when I noticed my phone had died. Plugging it in, I was greeted by a flood of missed calls and texts. 15 missed calls. Dozens of messages. My heart sank as I scrolled through them, all variations of "Are you okay?" and "Please respond." It had only been an hour since we'd parted ways. 1 hour. I felt the creepiness crawl over me like a second skin. This wasn't normal. This wasn't okay. I texted him back to let him know I was fine, but made it clear that I didn't feel a connection and didn't want to take things further. His response was intense. The calls and texts didn't stop. By the next day, he'd sent more messages, still asking if I was okay. "I had a dream you died," one of them said. It felt so real. I even searched for your name in the news to make sure it didn't happen. I didn't reply. What could I even say to that? I started ignoring the messages, hoping he'd get the hint. But then, a text came that sent a chill down my spine. Fine. This is how supervillains are born. Supervillains? Was that supposed to be a joke? A threat? I didn't wait to find out. I blocked his number and deleted his messages. For days afterward, I felt a lingering unease, like his presence was still hovering over me. I replayed the date in my mind, trying to figure out where it had gone so wrong, why I hadn't seen the red flags earlier. The Klonopin, the artist collective, the possessive comment about nursing school, it all seemed so obvious in hindsight. But at the time, I'd chalked it up to nerves, to quirks, to anything other than what it truly was, a disaster waiting to unfold. About a year ago, I went on a date with this guy who I had a few classes with. Let's call him Dice Guy. I lost touch with Dice Guy after the classes were over, and a few months later, he adds me on Facebook during the second semester of my freshman year. We exchange some messages, and he begins to explain that he has dropped out of university due to personal reasons. To be honest, I really didn't know much about him other than the insightful comments he made during class discussions. One day I was bored, and he suggests that we go out on a date. What was about to come was worst date ever. Because he dropped out of the university, he lives at home. He has a license to drive as well as some cars. I lived about 30 minutes away, and he asks me to drive. I thought, okay, might as well, because we were headed for a zoo about 20 more minutes away. He lived closer to it. I pick him up, he loads my car with his camera gear, a backpack, a heavy-ass tripod, and some random equipment. We're just going to the goddamn zoo, not a National Geographic photo shoot in the Costa Rican rainforests. I ended up wasting half a tank of gas, $30, just to pick him up and go to the zoo. I had also paid $5 for parking. Admission was cheap, about $7 for students, and because he still had his student ID, he got in for that price. Usually guys would offer to pay for movie tickets or dinners and whatnot, but Dice Guy thought I didn't deserve this. I paid for gas money and parking, and soon I will find I will pay for a lot of things, and the Chia Pass wouldn't fork over $7, so I ended up paying for it. The zoo had some pretty miserable-looking animals, and Dice Guy went on and on about his photographic repertoire. He then started talking about how he likes watching animals being eaten by other animals, and how attractive Virginia Woolf was. When I spoke, he would immediately interrupt with his own stories, or ask me why my stories were worth talking about. We later went out to eat, and when the check arrived, he looked at me expectantly. The meal was only about $20 for both of us. He still didn't offer to pay, but would begrudgingly pay for his own. I had to take the check to the waitress to split it, and we ended up paying separately. When I thought the date was over, he suggests that we should drive an hour towards our university. It was still early in the day, and I told him I was almost out of gas. He says, well, go get some. I was stupid enough to do this, thinking he would pay, but nope. Instead, after I got back into the car and on the interstate, he whips out this big plastic canister containing a bunch of rocks. However, these rocks were colorful, geometric, and had numbers on them. I asked him what he was doing, and he said, "Oh, I'm just looking at them. These are my dice for Dungeons and Dragons. I always keep them in my pocket, because I never want to lose them." I laughed nervously and thought I would let this slide. After all, most people have their own hobbies and interests that they're passionate about. While driving, he started to rant about his ex-girlfriend. I had a few classes with her, and she was a very sweet girl. Dice Guy disagrees, and was apparently still bitter about their breakup. He said, "Yeah, I still stalk her on Facebook. She has a boyfriend. I sent her emails telling her she made love like a statue and what a sadistic bitch she was. I just nodded and kept driving." He continues, "When she didn't reply to those emails, I started emailing all her other email accounts she had in junior high and tried getting passwords to them. I asked, 'Why did you do that, Dice Guy?' I don't know, but she deleted those email accounts. I tried getting a hold of her new ones. I also emailed her new boyfriend and chewed him out. You should see it. I did such a good job." At this point I was already scared of him, but then he begins to elaborate on dropping out of university. Turns out that he was actually suspended for some reason. He will not tell me exactly why, which made his roommate freak out. His roommate had reported him to the university police, and Dice Guy was instructed to pack up his things and leave, never to return. I asked him if it was okay to go visit the university, and he said no, because there is a detective guy working there, and he caught me on campus before. It's okay though, I doubt he'll see me. I wasn't aware of what was going on, but apparently Dice Guy probably did something really bad that the university needs a detective to be on the lookout for him. I had my iPod plugged into the car and music was playing, and Dice Guy disconnects the AUX cord and plugs in his voice recorder. "WTF, Dice Guy? I want you to listen to my voice in the very last lecture I attended. It's a recording he made of himself talking to his instructor in a class, and how he felt about being suspended from school. I forget most of what the recording was about, but the bulk of it began with, 'Hello, can I go off topic and tell everyone what's been bothering me?' Dice Guy went on a tirade about not trusting anyone anymore, especially his roommate. You can hear the snickers from other students in the background and how flustered the instructor was. It was extremely painful to listen to. We walked around campus, and he started pulling out some papers. It was graded by a professor, and Dice Guy started beaming. This was the best paper I've ever written. I keep it around with me all the time. I asked him why he carried it around with him, but instead he pulled out more stuff. There was some hideous drawing with a snake eating its own tail and ugly writing all around it. This is a piece of artwork I made. I'm going to have it as a medallion one day. It was starting to get late, and there would be a long drive home, so we headed back. On the way, there is a toll booth, $5. Of course, I end up paying while Dice Guy replays his fucking recording again over my car stereo. I was already extremely infuriated and sped him back to his house another hour. We said goodbyes, and he immediately texts me later asking to hang out again, but I didn't reply. The following day, he texts me again. "Hey, I left my camera equipment in your car." Great. A friend told me that he would purposely leave his shit, in my case, camera equipment, in cars just to revisit you again in case you break off contact. Dice Guy finds out where I work. I had the opening shift, and goes to take his equipment. My workplace hasn't opened yet, but the pet store next door was, and he drags me inside to look at snakes. I would love a snake and watch it feed on mice. I love watching animals kill things too. Isn't it so epic? I had cut off contact with him and ignored his texts after that day. He would sometimes go into my workplace and try to talk to me, but I would immediately try to speak to another customer and look busy. Some of my co-workers even warned me if he was in the store, in which case I would hide. I ended up quitting my job in order to focus on school, and he messaged me almost a few days after I quit asking what I was up to, and if I still worked at the same place, and if I wanted to go out on a date again. After I blocked him, he made another FB account asking why I blocked him. Honestly, I was fucking scared of this guy. I was walking down the street, cradling my old beat-up flip phone, the kind that creaked when you flipped it open and felt like a relic even then. I was wrapping up a phone call when it happened. Wham! My shoulder slammed into someone, and the phone slipped out of my hand, clattering to the sidewalk. "Sorry," I stammered, kneeling to retrieve it. My brain barely registered the person I'd collided with, a quick flash of red hair, a murmured apology from her, and I was already hustling back to work. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I flipped it open, expecting another work call. Hello. Hey, a soft voice said, tinged with amusement. I think we accidentally swapped phones. For a second, I didn't understand. But then it clicked, same model, same beat-up state. I'd grabbed her phone in the chaos. Oh wow, I think you're right. My bad. No worries, she said, laughing lightly. Want to meet up after work to switch back? We agreed on a coffee shop near downtown, and when I walked in later that day, I spotted her instantly. She was sitting near the window, a sharp, professional-looking ginger in a suit dress, sipping on what looked like an espresso. She glanced up, caught my eye, and smiled. I won't lie, she was cute. Really cute. The kind of cute that makes you sit up straighter and wish you'd bothered ironing your shirt that morning. We chatted for a while, both laughing at the absurdity of the phone mix-up. She worked at a bank, loved the same movies I did, and even joked about how she thought fate might have orchestrated the whole incident. Before I knew it, we'd made plans for dinner that weekend. Saturday evening rolled around, and I was optimistic. Maybe this was one of those meet-cute stories people gush about. I pulled up to her place, parked, and waited. When the door opened, I blinked. Twice. The ginger who walked out was barely recognizable. Gone was the polished bank attire, replaced by platform boots that must have added at least 4 inches to her height, fishnet stockings that shimmered in the porch light, and a corset-like top that left little to the imagination. Her hair, once sleek, was now spiked dramatically. Wow, I said, scrambling to keep my surprise in check. You look ready for a fun night. She laughed. I know, right? Let's go. I shrugged off my hesitation, reminding myself not to judge a book by its cover. Style was personal, and if her personality was as great as it had been at the coffee shop, this could still be amazing. On the way, we fell into an easy rhythm. She laughed at my jokes, matched my banter, and even one-upped me a few times. My spirits lifted. She asked what the plan was for the night, and I decided to joke about it. Well, I said, grinning, I'm taking you to my absolute favorite high-end dining establishment. If you're lucky, I might even supersize it. McDonald's, she said, catching on immediately and playing along. A Big Mac? Oh, be still my heart. We both laughed, and I felt the tension from earlier melt away. This girl might have wild fashion, but she had wit to match. When we pulled into the parking lot of a cozy, upscale pub, I killed the engine. Her smile faltered. What about McDonald's? At first, I thought she was kidding, but the look on her face told me she wasn't. I chuckled nervously. I was joking about that. Thought you caught on. Oh, she said, her tone flat. Okay. We headed inside and found a table. The vibe was warm and inviting, a place where the dim lighting and wooden beams made it feel timeless. I ordered a scotch to steady my nerves. She, however, ordered the largest boot of Bud Light I'd ever seen. For a moment, I was impressed by her confidence, until she leaned in close and whispered, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. I can't believe they let his kind into a place like this. We'd better check our food for spit. I froze. Our waiter was black, and he'd just walked away from our table. The man had ears, and judging by the stiffening of his shoulders, he'd heard every word. My stomach dropped. Surely I misheard her. Nobody says things like that in public, right? But no. She kept going, leaning over her massive glass boot and whispering a steady stream of vile commentary about racial superiority. I could feel the panic bubbling up inside me. The cozy pub, the polished wooden beams, the faint hum of laughter from nearby tables, it all felt surreal. How had this funny, engaging woman from the coffee shop turned into this? Dinner arrived, and she made a show of inspecting her plate for spit. My appetite vanished, replaced by a nauseating cocktail of secondhand embarrassment and anger. I caught the waiter's eye and gave him a look I hoped conveyed my apologies. He nodded faintly, his professionalism unwavering. By the time she'd polished off 3 more boots of beer, I was counting down the minutes until I could escape. She excused herself to the bathroom, giving me the opportunity to settle the check. I waved over the waiter and apologized profusely. Don't worry about it, he said, his voice calm and measured. There are all kinds of people in this world. He gave me a small, understanding smile that only made me feel worse. I tipped him generously, hoping it would at least soften the blow of the night. When she returned, I braced myself for round 2. Instead, she lit a cigarette in my car without asking, filling the small space with smoke. We should totally go shooting at my dad's farm, she said, exhaling casually. What's your favorite gun? I muttered something about not being much of a shooter and pointed out that it was getting late. Thankfully, she didn't argue. When I dropped her off, she turned to me with a smile. This was great. Except for that slur waiter. We should totally get that Big Mac next time. See you soon. I didn't even respond. I just nodded, forced a weak smile, and drove off. As soon as I turned the corner, I let out a shaky breath. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles ached. What the hell had just happened? When I got home, I replayed the entire night in my head, disbelief washing over me in waves. The initial charm, the jokes, the sharp descent into something dark and ugly. It was like dating two entirely different people. I blocked her number before I even made it to my front door. Swapped phones with a cute ginger, went on a date, discovered she was wildly racist and generally unhinged. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. Cheryl was nice. Sociable, vivacious, spirited, intelligent, bubbly, fun. I was stunned she didn't shoot me down when I asked her out. We exchanged numbers and talked a few times. This was just when texting was still a passing fad in my region. We had a good rapport, good connection, we clicked, we meshed. Because she didn't know me well, she worked in the bank I used. I suggested for her peace of mind that we meet at a local restaurant we both liked. I made it clear that I'm old school. Since I'd asked her out, I'd take care of paying. Ask her pays. Great. Meet you there at 5. That worked for me, and we sort of let silence fill the next day and the next up until date time. Build a little tension. Absence makes the fart go Honda and whatnot. I went all out. New shirt, polished the boots, nice jeans, got a hair trim, stropped up my straight razor for the ultimate shave, the works. Got in my truck looking good, feeling like I looked damn good. I pop a mint, chew it, swish, swallow. Pop another, let it start dissolving. A dude at work bought a brand new Mustang, but I got a date with the sexiest woman in my town, so I win. I got my game on. Pulled into the parking lot at 4:50. Her car was sitting there. Hot damn. I love it when the other person on the date shows up. Lock up the truck, go inside. Scope around and spot her in a back booth. Ooh, romantical. I take a step farther and notice this other go-troper is sitting in the booth, on her side, talking with her. Cool. I walk on and greet her, a handshake. I was hoping for something like a cheek kiss, but oh well. I'd love you to meet Randy, not his real name either. I hope you don't mind. Such a wild coincidence that he was having dinner here tonight of all nights. We attended university together and haven't seen each other in, 6, 7 years? Oh yes, at least. And I have missed your warm smile. Bear in mind, gentle reader, I know that there's a great chance this was her seeing how I handled bullshit. So, I made my mind up then and there. I'm gonna just let it ride. I'm gonna be graceful about it. This is a date, but she's not my girlfriend officially, so it's cool. Easiest way to blow this would be to get possessive or territorial about this. It's a free world, she's a free woman. I'm not going to assert myself. Our connection will make itself evident. Waiter came to take our drink orders. He slid in alongside us and ordered with us. Cool. It's a Coke, no big. We exchanged a nice little convo over our drinks, and when the waiter arrived, Randy asked Cheryl to advise him on what was good, what she liked. He ordered, then she ordered, then I ordered. As the date progressed, I started to notice something. Early, during the drinks, her attention was split maybe 60-40 favoring him. However, as the date progressed further, she started spending less time with her head facing forward and a lot more with her head turned to the side, toward him. There was a considerable chunk toward the end when she didn't look at me even once, and neither did he. 10, then 15, then 20 minutes. Laser focus on each other. You ever feel like the world is a black tie wedding, and you're wearing a Led Zeppelin t-shirt and ratty Levi's? The waiter had brought the check. I palmed it and excused myself to the washroom. They hardly noticed. Not terribly surprised by that. I paid. $98.56, dinner x3. I'd intended, after dinner, to go see a movie with her. I handed the waiter the $50 I'd intended to blow for the flick and left. Thank the goddesses for liquor stores that are open late, so pathetic losers like me can buy Crown Royal and Grey Goose after hours. Straight 50 to 50 isn't the most sophisticated cocktail, but it's efficient for the task at hand. She left me a voicemail a couple days later, letting me know that she and Randy were going to rekindle their romance. Later this year, they'll celebrate their 7th wedding anniversary. Yay! Went on a blind date that my friend set me up on at a local bar with a live music night. It went well, and we decided we might do it again. The next weekend we met at a big art show/festival and decided it was a good night for some karaoke, at a favorite local dive. She had had a couple drinks, and so had I, but everyone seemed pretty with it. On the drive over to the bar, she was looking around on the floor of the car while driving down a busy street and started to veer into the parked lane of cars. I managed to grab the wheel and correct before we slammed into the back of a parked car, which we most definitely would have hit if I hadn't. Strike one, bad driver. She's a distracted chick, etc. Sexist maybe, but in this case very true. About that time she told me she hadn't eaten that evening and was feeling a little tipsy. We got to the bar in one piece and started to enjoy the karaoke and some more beers. After another beer or two, she began to let her hand wander around my crotch, etc., which I was fine with. Then she started to pinch me on the arm and what we called horsebitting, basically taking a handful of flesh and pinching and pulling at the same time on the inside of my thigh. Now I'm all for some rough play and aggressive folding, but this fucking hurt. I had to pin her hands to her lap and tell her to stop. By this point she was pretty drunk, it would seem, punctuated by nearly knocking the prompt monitor off its table while singing some damn song. I decided it was time to leave, and her being obviously rather on the trash side, I opted to drive because in Houston, it's basically a calculated risk of who's the least drunk. Dumb maybe, but she was still coherent and wanted me to come over. Sex makes dumb. So we start driving towards her neighborhood, which is on the opposite side of the city from mine, and about halfway there she tells me to pull into a side street. I do so, and she dives like a scuba enthusiast and starts giving me the business on the side of the road. I enjoy this for a while, but we're not really that far off the map, and cops in Houston like to patrol the burbs looking for degenerate idiots doing dodgy things in cars. Also, it appeared we were near her place, based on her previous information given. So I zip up, buckle up, and we start off towards her hood once again. She promptly passes the fuck out. This presents a difficulty as she didn't ever tell me an exact address, just a general area. I repeatedly try to wake her up to the point where she can be exacting in her location finding capacity. So there I am driving around buzzed with a passed out girl in the passenger seat in a neighborhood which caters to a certain demographic that is decidedly not my own and rhymes with Flixican. Not usually a problem, but at 1 a.m. on a Saturday night is not where I needed to be driving around aimlessly. At this point I make the decision that she's not going to be any damn help and that I should just drive home and put her up in my extra bed. She's mumbling the odd nonsense about, right over there, nobody knows yada yada. So after a white-knuckle drive with Houston's finest on my tail for a good portion, I make it home and carry her passed out ass up to my place. After checking to make sure she has a pulse and water and all that jazz, I dump her in the guest bed and start to get ready for bed. All of a sudden she's walking around, bumping into things and generally being a confused drunk. I ask her what she needs, and she pushes past me into the bathroom and slams the door. Fair enough. I leave her for a few minutes, but after 10 I realize she's probably passed out in there, which I'm just not going to have. She is indeed passed out face down on the floor blocking the door. After a little creative pushing and pulling I get inside and get her back on her bed. She starts ranting about how I'm being a stupid boy and something else about how I have no inbox. I've dealt with hammered chicks before, but this was a new one. She kept repeating something about my lack of an inbox and then lurched into my kitchen and began banging around. I walked in and asked what she was looking for. A bowl, she growled. I was glad to give up a mixing bowl if it was going to keep my sheets and floor clear of vomit, so I got her a large one and tried to figure out how to convince her to go back to bed or hit the bathroom to deal with her purge. She told me to go away and leave her alone, so I went to the opposite side of my apartment out of sight and waited while she banged around a bit more. Then I heard a wet splat and a groan. I called over, "Are you okay? Are you puking?" To which I got the unbelievably disturbing answer, "No, I'm pooping." My heart sank. This girl was dropping a deuce in my mixing bowl in my kitchen. I sort of clammed up and waited for it to end. After a minute I heard her stumble to the bathroom and dump the bowl into the toilet, run some water, drop the bowl and stumble back to her bed. I nervously did a sweep of the place to survey the damage. No turd on the floor in Tay kitchen, but the ghost of horrible acts very present. The bathroom was undisturbed, minus the very conspicuous blue mixing bowl sitting next to the john, with a not-so-blue film coating the inside. She had managed to rinse it, but not well. I gagged a little, decided to deal with it in the morning. I checked once more to make sure she was stationary, and went to sleep wishing it a bad dream. The next morning I awoke to her telling me she had a great time from what she remembered, and that she had to get to work. No mention of recollection of the night's previous events registered in her salutations. I decided to let the sleeping dog lie for the sake of her dignity, and told her basic geographical location. She chipperly bade me a fair day, and was out the door. I got up, found a trash bag and a rubber glove, walked into the bathroom, and trashed that bowl faster than you can say shit. I was in shock for days, and never called again. This really cute chick I met on Whisper, which probably was a bad idea in and of itself. We'll call her M. For those who don't know, Whisper is an anonymous confession app where you can post your confessions in your local community, and possibly the world can comment and message you about them. Somehow I found multiple dates on Whisper. I'm pretty happy I left that part of my dating life in the past. Anyway, I wrote something sappy like, "I wish I had someone to head to beach with," and decided to respond. She was super cute, had brown curly frizzy hair, and I was smitten. We talked for a week or so, and then scheduled a Saturday to go to the beach together. I drive to her house and pick her up. She asks me to park few houses down the street, which I do without thinking. We went to the beach, made out, played in the water, flirted, and had a great time. She recommended going to a local bar, and we did, and we flirted and played games together. Honestly, up until this point, the night was fantastic, one of my better dates. However, M had been getting calls from her mother. Apparently, she was out beyond curfew. I was about 26 years old at this time, and M was herself 25. It was only about 10 p.m., but Mom was not happy with M or me. M asks me to drop her off a little down the street so that she can walk up to her house. I agree to do it because she asks. I watch her walk up to the front door and then drive off. I drive 30 minutes home, and M calls me. Her mother refuses to let her inside the house until I come and see her. I'm dumbfounded, but she sounds worried, and I do blame myself, even though M never told about a curfew, nor how controlling her mom was. I drive 30 minutes back. At this point, I'm pretty frustrated. We had a long day out together, and I just drove an hour home and back. I park a ways down the street and walk up to their house. M and her mother are standing on the porch. Her mom apparently only speaks Spanish, so M acts as a translator as her mother twists her face and looks at me. She asks me what we did together today. M texted me on the way to say nothing about the drinking. So I tell her we just went to the beach and hung out. We had a perfectly innocent day. Her mother keeps grilling me through M as a translator and lets me know her daughter has a problem. She asks if we slept together. We did not, but that wasn't her business. Each question pisses me off a little bit more. My answers get shorter and colder as I start staring daggers back at her. M's mom calls her sister out at some point and sends up the street for some reason in the direction of my car. I don't know why, but this shit is too much for me. I'm over it. I began marching down the street as I see her sister taking pictures of my license plates for who knows what reason. M runs down the street after me, tells me how sorry she is, and then asks, get this, if we can make out in front of her mom right now just to piss her off more. You know, up until this point, I would say this situation was salvageable. Mom cares about her daughter and might have a drinking problem, okay. I can work around a drinking problem, and she wouldn't be the first girl I've dated with controlling parents. But this childish teenage rebellion bullshit coming from M herself? I was too through. I drove home for the last time that night. She texted me that she was sorry again the next morning. I blocked her on everything after that. It's a bummer too because M and I had a great time out together during the day, but I didn't know that our date was some act of rebellion or temporary escape from her mom. This is an experience I had, not with my significant other, but a really good friend. Almost 10 days back, my boyfriend and I were super busy with our own lives. He, with his job and family holiday, and I, with my dramatics and a college fest. Just so it happened, I had been feeling low for quite a while. I kept myself busier than I already was. So one day, I was in Jaipur picking up costumes for the kids in my drama club. I was constantly messaging my very good friend Rohit Matolia. He knew about everything that I had been going through recently then. I told him I was heading for some restaurant for lunch. Enters surprise element. When I reached there, I found familiar face standing in front of me with a smile and a flower. I instantly forgot my weariness, recognizing it was Rohit. I walked up to him with a big smile, and as surprised as I was, I could not figure out what he was doing in Jaipur when he had to leave for South Africa the next day. He told me that since I had been in blues for past few days, on his way to Delhi to catch his flight, he took a halt at Jaipur to see me when I told him that I would be there that day. I was shocked and so full of delight. I assumed it was an impromptu plan he might have made. Little did I know, he had a pending coffee date planned for me. He took me to the coffee house where he had made reservations. And since he knows how indecisive I am, he had already placed an order on my behalf according to my usual tastes. I felt so pampered. The best thing you can do for a sad and tired person is listen to them. And that is exactly what he did. He listened to me whine about my college, my problems, my sorrows, everything. Not that he just listened to them, he kept adding puns and making jokes in between so as to keep the mood light and made me laugh. I always told him how I hate to cross the road on my own, and how I feel miserable when the person walking with me takes a lead. He took care of everything. After all the work I had been doing then, I felt happy and so relaxed on our little date. As Trevor Wesley sings, and they say chivalry is dead. Girl, let a real man pick up the slack and treat you with respect, yeah. Rohit did full justice to the song that day. He was a perfect gentleman, making it one of the best dates I have ever had. Well, sure, I knew he is more Sanskari and Sarvgun Sampana than any other person I know, tongue sticking out, but I had never seen this side of him. I wished him bon voyage and bid goodbye as he left for Delhi and later flew off to South Africa. Rohit, you are a good person. I am lucky to be your friend with no complications in our friendship. Thank you. This is very long and overly detailed, but it's the only way I can convey how creepy this was. Having become recently single after a 2+ year relationship ended, I was encouraged by my parents to give the nice boy from church a chance as he was beginning to show interest in me. Keep in mind my family, and I knew who he was, but did not know anything about him other than he seemed like a genuinely friendly person. I was not attracted to him in the slightest, but I figured if he was nice and we got along then maybe I should just give this a chance. I agreed, and he said he would come pick me up from my house, and we would go to the movie theater. He pulled up to the house and walked in, greeting me and my mother. We walked to his car, and on the ride to the theater that was about 30 minutes from my house, the conversation was normal, and it was moving along, nothing awkward, just a good conversation. However, the moment we stepped out of the car at the theater, everything changed. He demanded that I give him my hand, so we can walk in together that way. I thought it was odd, but I agreed to because what's the worst that holding hands can do? We walk inside, and as we are standing in line to buy tickets, he tells me to kiss him. I tell him absolutely not. I don't even really know him, and our date just begun. He was upset, but let go of my hand and clung to my arm. We walk into the theater, and he immediately tells me that we are going to sit in the very back row. Although it was not a row, it was only 2 seats, most likely there for those who were handicapped. I did not want to sit alone with him there as I was already uncomfortable, but I did anyways because I was nervous. The movie came on, and his hands creeped behind me, attempting to go on the inside down the back of my pants to touch my butt. I pushed his hands away, but then he moved them up over my shoulders, letting his hand dangle close to my breasts. I was so disgusted, I got up and told him to stop. A few minutes later, he gets up and tells me to follow him. He stops in the back of the theater and goes in for a kiss, grabbing my face violently, and I tell him no and I went to sit back down. These gross little shenanigans continued throughout the movie. Keep in mind, I had no cell phone at this time, so I couldn't call my mom or anyone to come pick me up. After the movie finished, and we walked back to the car, it was just beginning to get dark, and I asked him to drive me home. After telling me about how amazing of a night he has had so far, weirdo, he says he will drive me home. Well, instead of taking me home, he turns into a middle school and drives all the way to the back end of the school, so that we can play on the tetherball courts. I thought that maybe he was trying to get us to play together to ease the tension he caused in the theater, but after playing tetherball with him for maybe 2 minutes, he says he is done playing and asked if I want to get in the back seat with him. I tell him absolutely not, and that I need to get home. He ignored that, grabbing me from behind and pulling me towards himself. If that isn't bad enough, he starts singing. He starts signing the song Anna Sun by Walk the Moon. Don't ask me why, because I could not tell you why. Not that it matters, but he sucks at singing, and I am at this point, horrified beyond doubt, because he is singing into my ear as he is holding me so tight to his body that I could not move. This continued on for about 15 minutes as he cycled through other songs he knew. I repeated I need to get home, and he agreed and we left. As he pulls into my driveway, I guess I hesitantly said I did not really know if I wanted to go on a second date. He floors it backwards out of the driveway and starts driving fast down the road. He begins raising his voice at me about how dare I waste his time, and how it seemed that I was having such a good time, that he doesn't understand what could have went wrong. I know, what in the world? To get him to calm down, I told him that I would go on another date. He immediately smiled and stopped screaming, turned around and took me home. He rushed out of the car to open my door for me, and as I was standing up to get out of the car, he shoves his face in mine, absolutely slobbering my face, trying to kiss me. Again, I wanted to vomit. I walked inside and did not tell my parents what happened because I had not processed it yet myself. It does not end here yet, though. The next day, I had not heard from this guy until it was around 9 p.m. I checked my phone to see a message from him telling me that he is outside and to come out so that he can apologize to me for the night before. I stepped outside, not telling my parents because I guess I was dumb, and saw no one. It was pitch black out. I did not see him nor his car. I called out hello and heard nothing, so I turned around to walk in. As I walked away, I heard a whistle. I called out for an answer, but I got another whistle, and it was coming from behind a row of pine trees. I got very scared and began walking in, but he ran out from behind the trees to me and hugged me. He told me that he parked the car down the road and that he has something to show me in the back seat. At this point I was very scared and did not want to upset him, so I walked with him to his car. He opened the back doors and I went to the back seat and he crawled in too. He pulled out a picture that he had drawn of me and asked me what I thought of it. I lied and said I loved it, but I was incredibly uncomfortable. He then lays back on my lap, his head on my thighs, and starts saying how nice this is and how he wants a future with me. He then sits up, takes his shoes off, puts his feet on my legs, and asks me if I think he has big feet. Side note, his feet smelled like vinegar and I wanted to throw up. I was unbelievably uncomfortable and scared about what he was planning to do next, so I sternly told him to drive me back home now. He listened to me and drove me home, which surprised me. He again slobbered my face and said good night, acting as if his behavior is completely normal. He texted me for a few days after this, but I never responded. To my surprise, he gave up and I have not heard from him since. I know this entire story made not an ounce of sense, but this is exactly what happened and how he behaved. Why are people so creepy? I was also young, about 17 years old, so I did not handle this the way I should have either. I was very lucky he wasn't violent.